Good afternoon. Welcome to the Florida Center for Inclusive Communities Employment Webinar Series. And today we are going to be talking to Dayna Lynn Holbel and Carla Wade, about Individualized Transition to Adulthood Project. And it's a model for improving post-secondary outcomes for students on the autism spectrum disorder.
All right, shall I go ahead and get started?
Sorry about that.
Okay, sorry. Didn't want to skip anything. Sorry, I'm very eager.
Sorry about that. My controls were being hit, and so I couldn't get to them. So quickly, we're going to do. No, we're not going to do a poll. I may do it at the end because it's not coming up right now. So we're not going to worry about that. But our presenters today are, as I said, Dayna Lynn Holbel and Carla Wade. And Dr. Carla Wade is an educational consultant with the Emory Autism Center, and she holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Special Education from UGA, a Master's in Special Education from Georgia State, and her Doctorate in Special Ed and Leadership from Capella University. And she began her career in the early 80s as a special education teacher, and after retiring from Cobb County Schools as a transition coordinator after a 30-year career, worked at Kennesaw State University as an instructor in the Academy for Inclusive Learning and Social Growth, the ISP at KSU, and in 2016 she was hired by GVRA as an academic transition teacher for the IPSC programs and worked with GVRA on the transition team until moving to the Emory Autism Center in January of 2022. And I am going to give you the bio on Dayna Holbel, and she is an educational consultant at the Emory Autism Center. She has over 20 years of experience working in the field of education in a variety of settings and roles, and her main focus has been student-centered transition planning, and she has worked closely with students, teachers, families, and adult providers to create meaningful and successful post-secondary outcomes for individuals with disabilities, in addition to her role as an educational consultant. And Ms. Holbel supports the Emory Autism Center's Individualized Transition to Adulthood Project. And so now I am going to turn it over to them.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, Denise. We are excited to be here today to talk to you about our Individualized Transition to Adulthood Project. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that I can control everything real quick. Okay, let me see, share screen. Here we go. All right. We should be good to go. So yes, you've already heard about us. If you have any questions as I'm sharing this information, please just pop them in the chat. We will make sure that we have a few minutes at the end of the time to answer questions. If for some reason we don't get to your question, we will be sure to respond to you via email or something else. So we'll make sure that we answer everyone's questions. So I'm just going to go present. Carla's going to jump in here and there, and we'll get started. So what is ITAP, this Individualized Transition to Adulthood Project that you all came to hear about? ITAP, at its very basic, is a program that is funded by the Department of Public Health in Georgia, and then we're actually executing the project. Department of Public Health came to us several years ago, and we were talking about outcomes for people with autism. They are worse than any other outcomes for kiddos with disabilities as they graduate and move out into the world. And so we started to have discussions about what could we do differently? What do we need to do differently? We know that there's so many more people with autism graduating, becoming adults, and we want to figure out how to improve those outcomes. So they offered to fund that, which is awesome. And we are now in our 6th project year, and we are going strong. And so we started to think about like, okay, well, what does that mean? And so, of course, we spent some time doing some research and reading literature and all that good stuff. And we kind of thought like, what is meaningful transition planning? And this visual is really important here, because it really is like, how do we lead our kids on that road to the future and make sure that it's a good future? One of the first things we realize is that transition is a team effort. It can't occur in a vacuum, right? So it's not just teachers, it's families, it's the students themselves, it's outside agencies, it's government agencies. And we really base a lot of our information on this. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen it, this taxonomy for transition programming. And it really kind of brings into focus that idea of transition as a team effort. It's student focused. We got to develop our kiddos. We have to have interagency collaboration. We have to really look at the program structure. And we have to, of course, empower and educate families as much as possible. This really forms the basis of what we kind of use to create our Individualized Transition to Adulthood project. We really believe that the transition plan must drive the IEP. It has to change in that high school time. So we're not just working on those, discrete skills, which are still important, right? The reading, the writing, the math, or whatever, that kind of stuff. But really, we need to start going, okay, what is this kid's future plan? And then the IEP needs to come in behind that future plan. So it's matching those post-secondary skills, and it's embedded into the school day. And that we're also really building that relationship between school and home, because our families are really going to be the long-term support for our students, right? After the big yellow school bus quits coming. This is kind of where we always joke about it when we come and we do these presentations. We're like, we're from the Emory Autism Center. You're going to get the Emory Autism view. This is really important for us. These are the areas that we see across the board with that individuals with autism struggle with: executive functioning, social skills, daily living skills, and self-awareness. And so we really feel like as we're working towards that transitioning our kiddos out to the real world, is that there needs to be opportunities for meaningful skill development in these 4 areas. If you really think about a good life and a successful life, these are the skills we need to do it, no matter who we are. And so we really focus a lot on that in our project. So we put this all together and we came up with our vision and our mission. And I'm not going to read that to you, but I want you to really notice that I highlighted the word interdependent. That's really important to us because none of us are independent 100%, right? We know that, a friend of mine just texted, oh my gosh, my hot water heater is dead. Who has a good plumber? We're interdependent, right? No matter what, we rely on each other as we make decisions as we go through life. And so figuring out where we need those, helping kiddos with autism realize where they need those supports and where they can be more independent and move to that positive life outcome, a really kind of integrated in the community, not only working, which is a huge part of what everybody does, but also, loving and being a partner, or, having friends and all of that kind of stuff. So when we get into the project itself and what we said, well, how are we going to do this? What do we need to do? And this is kind of where it gets a little more detailed. We are doing comprehensive transition assessments. I'm going to share a little bit more about that. We're doing a lot of training in the school systems, as well as technical assistance in the school systems. We're also doing parent trainings. That falls into our parent engagement. We do a lot of collaboration with outside agencies. I'm going to get into that a little bit. We really look at the program infrastructure in our pilot programs and how can we support that and change it and and create more opportunities. And then, of course, like any good project, we're doing some evaluation, not only of our project, but also of the programs that we're involved in. So last year, which is the year we have the data for, we're in 2 pilot sites. We're partnered, and we did 9 professional development sessions with those teachers and educators. We had small group technical assistance sessions. We had 27 of those. Those are more like one-on-one targeted technical assistance in transition planning. 107 family members across the state received training and resources related to transition planning, and that would be either through like one-on-one sessions or trainings. We had 10 students who participated in our transition assessment and planning across our 2 pilot programs, and we're going to talk more about that. And then additionally, we're expanding our project not just to our pilot sites, but we're also expanding that to our other districts in the state and our Georgia regional learning systems, which are they're kind of hubs for many districts. So we've been doing professional development and resource with them. So to get into the comprehensive transition assessment, and this is really kind of the biggest part of what we do, I think. It takes up the most time. I feel like it has a lot of impact with our families. So in each of our pilot programs, we start out with a small cohort in the 8th grade, and we do these comprehensive transition assessments. And we come back to that same group of students, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and so on. Our eldest cohort is now in the 11th grade. So each year we do a records review. So that's looking at anything, any assessments, any IEPs, psychoeducational evaluations. We do a parent interview. We do a student interview. Oftentimes we'll do a student observation. That's been a little hindered in the last few years because of COVID. I think you've heard of it. Anyway, teacher interviews. And we take all that information and we take it back to our interdisciplinary team. So on our team, we've got there's 3 of us that are educational consultants. We've got a school psychologist, we have a therapist, and we take all that information and we do a case consult meeting, and then we write a really extensive report, this transition assessment. And in that transition assessment, we look at those 4 big areas, right? We look at how is this kid doing with daily living, social skills, executive functioning, and self-awareness. And we look at where they are and what their needs are. And we also look at what are their post-secondary goals, what are their interests, their aptitudes, that sort of thing. We kind of put that all together. And then we offer detailed goal suggestions in each of those areas that you would find on the transition plan. So, education and training and employment and daily living and related services, and adult living, and we put that in. Once we get that all together, and we offer resources as well as connections to outside providers if that's appropriate, then we sit down with the family, the student, and the teacher, and we share that. Carla actually has developed a really nice kind of PowerPoint that gives a visual representation to the transition assessment that we've been piloting this year. That's been fantastically received by the kids that have seen it. And it, because otherwise it's just a bunch of text to them, right? But we break it down. And so we've been using that. And we share that, and we hope it is our goal, and we're seeing that happen, is that the IEP team then takes that information to help write the transition plan. And then the parents take that to help them support transition planning for their student. So these are just some quotes from students that have been through our transition program. I think it's really neat. The themes that I see here are a lot of that self-awareness and self-advocacy, just really understanding, what do I need to improve? So it's kind of, we're really excited, and we've got more of these, but I won't bore you with them all, but they're meaningful to us because we really feel like this is making a difference with our kiddos. These are some of the parents. We're also seeing that parents are feeling educated. Parents are feeling empowered. We find a lot of times that when our families first start working with us in the 8th grade, it's not really on their radar, right? And then it's like, oh my gosh. But I think starting early, like we are in the 8th grade, we're really getting parents to understand the steps it takes for meaningful transition. And then the teachers, we love our teachers. Carla and I are both teachers at heart. We really think about what can we do for teachers, and these, we're giving teachers resources. We're also giving them great ideas for goals, and our teachers are reporting that that is really helpful for them. I love this accountability, that students are feeling more accountable for their action. That just goes back into that self-awareness and self-advocacy that's so important to us. So a big part of what we do, transition assessments aside, is we do a lot of training and technical assistance. And this picture is intentional too. We feel like this is a way we're building capacity. We're planting those seeds of good transition planning so that teachers are going to feel educated, empowered, and be able to help out. But we don't just stick to our pilot sites. Like I said, we go to the Georgia Learning Resource Centers. We do district level trainings for teachers and administrators. We've even been asked to speak to some colleges and universities, community agencies. Carla's done some work with our Georgia Vocational Rehabilitation Agencies, doing some trainings with their counselors. So we're trying to get our word out as far as we can, and we love to speak. And additionally, so just to give you a little detail, like on our professional development, these are the topics from last year. And we're really trying to get into, dropping down from the 100 foot view, into the details to really support transition planning. We've been doing some work at Tifton, that's our other school, with the work-based learning with their self-contained classes. And we've really helped them build a program for those students. And it's been really great. It just started last year, and it's really gone gangbusters. It's really great to just create more opportunities for our kiddos. So we also just have come up with this idea too. We've been building in each of our pilot sites. We're building something and modeling out. We created a model for this where we call them transition task forces. In one of our schools, we meet monthly. Another school, we're meeting more quarterly. But it's a really a great way to bring together everybody on the team that's kind of involved in transition planning to help build that program infrastructure that we talked about earlier in the Kohler thing. This is a way we get community members. We've got like a guy that he's a vice president at a local bank, and he's really connected with the Chamber of Commerce and sort of thing. And so he's involved in our group. We have GVRA that is attending, which is our Georgia Vocational Rehabilitation Agency, and other community service agencies, like from the Department of Developmental Health, or Department of Developmental Disabilities. We have them coming. We're there. We also have parents on staff that are there, and we have teachers at the high school and the junior high level to bring together, like, how can we create more opportunities for intentional transition programming and opportunities for post-secondary opportunities for our students. We're hoping to grow these task forces. We're hoping to pull in some of our post-secondary representatives, either from post-secondary inclusion programs or just local colleges, so that we can also get that perspective, so we can look back and decide how we can build up our programming. These task forces, and I'll talk a little bit more about this in a second, but they're also really helpful for us when we start to look at the feedback that we get from teachers through our giving our teachers the quality indicators of exemplary transition programming. the QI2, hope maybe you're familiar with it, but it's basically like teachers rate the transition programming at their school in several domains. And we use that information to take back to our task force and go, okay, this is what teachers are saying. What can we develop? What can we create that is going to support our teachers and our students? So, oh, this got locked off here. So just another thing that we've come up with that we really like and that has shown to be very effective are just on one-on-one technical assistance sessions with teachers. Last year we did 17 at TIFT, we did 10 at Tapestry. We've got, the way we kind of model it out is we have a teacher bring us a transition plan that he or she is working on. We make sure they've completed an assessment prior to that. And we say, okay, we're going to workshop this transition plan with you. We offer resources, we offer suggestions. Additionally, we're doing sessions this semester. Okay, here's a new kiddo that you have, and you've inherited this transition plan. How are you going to implement these transition goals? How are you going to take data on these goals? And so we're doing those sessions. Teachers find them really nice because they're about 30 minutes and they schedule them on their own time. We're doing them primarily remotely. So it's a really nice way to just provide that extra support in a meaningful way. We've had great success with those. If we just look at the focus of the technical assistance sessions, what teachers bring to us as needs, it's really important for us because that helps us develop our professional development going forward. So you can see here, the lion's share is transition assessments. Teachers want more transition assessments, assistance with transition assessments, looking at what kind of assessments they can use beyond just the, hey, what kind of career do you want? Which is important, right? But there's also like, where are your daily living skills? Where are your executive functioning skills? That sort of stuff. So looking at the whole kiddo. You'll see our second one is goal writing, which we're spending a lot of time this year doing goal writing workshops. And the orange part that says other, I will tell you that in my experience, most of the time that gets into like, how am I going to take data on this goal? How am I going to, create, like, how am I going to get this kid to do this thing? Really, like what kind of opportunities? And so we spend a lot of time doing that. So again, we are big on parent education and empowerment. We have been working with our pilot sites, doing those sessions. We also do with any school districts that have asked us. We speak all the time, and we've spoken to a lot of parent groups around the state. Some of the topics: transition tips for parents, tips for post-secondary success, navigating puberty. We've talked about our Emory Oaks program, which is our college support program, and the need for neurodiverse universities. And in each of these, we give parents a lot of resources like the Autism Speaks Transition Toolkit, the 411 on Disability Disclosure Workbook, the Organization for Autism Research College Guide, and we have developed with the Georgia Department of Public Health, we developed a Transition to Adult Healthcare Workbook, and we often give that to parents as well in these sessions. We have found that those are really helpful. So just to give you a little bit idea about the breadth of our service delivery with our parent sessions, we have about 107 last year that attended. And we did 4 parent sessions at TIFT and Tapestry. Those are our pilot projects. And then about 5 sessions with community groups. Another big part of what we do is collaboration, right? We've got to be out there. We've got to not work in a silo if we're really going to implement meaningful transition planning. So Carla and I work with all of these different agencies, meeting folks across the state to not only hear what's being done, what's being successful, but also share out resources in our program. So just to get into, we are a study, we're hoping to publish results at some point. And so just to look at our most recent data from our from our project. So these are the evaluation domains we're looking at. Student assessment. We're coding our IEPs that are for the kids that are involved in our project. So what we're doing is we're looking at we're looking at our transition assessment and comparing it to the IEP to see how well they match. We're also doing a transition assessment satisfaction survey with the parents that participate in our project. During our training in technical assistance, we always ask our participants to provide us with a little satisfaction survey. And we're just this year implementing an annual pre and an annual post survey for teachers. And I mentioned that we're doing the quality indicators of exemplary transition program needs assessment, the QI2. We're doing that yearly, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And then after our sessions that we do with parents, we ask parents to fill out a survey. So we're trying to look at all the different things that we do and find out how they're working. So the parent survey. So this is for the parents that are participating in our transition assessment. Our survey asks some of these questions. You'll see our 4 big areas there. If you talk to us, you'll hear about it a lot. And then also, like, how are you feeling about whether or not your kiddos are going to be able to reach their goals? So this is some of the result. What is the most helpful about the transition assessment process? By far and large, it's the recommendations that we offer, right? And then a lot of parents really enjoy that feedback meeting that I spoke of. It's an hour long. We're talking about their kid. Their kid is kind of the focus of it. And we really direct it as the student is the leader of that meeting. Parents really are responding positively to that. And you can see the other ones too. Are not quite there, but we'll continue to look at this. That might change. Confidence and goal achievement. I think this is neat. So if you look at the light blue color, that is our 10th grade cohort. So those are families that have been with us in the 8th grade, the 9th grade, and now in the 10th grade. You can see in almost every measure, their confidence went up in these 4 areas. It is interesting that the community participation piece fell back a little bit. And that is going to be good data for us to look at, like, how can we increase opportunities for community participation for their students? And then after our parent education sessions, we also ask the participants to share with us their thoughts. And you can see this is what we're kind of asking them. How was the quality? Did we communicate clearly? What actions will you take? 100% of attendees agreed with all the questions about satisfaction, and 100% of attendees rated the parent sessions as excellent. It just really goes to show us that parents are eager for this information, that it's important to them. And so it just kind of gives Carla and I this idea, like, we got to do more about this. We've got to be out there more. We've got to share that we can do this. We're actually doing one next week. We just do them as much as we possibly can. These are some of the things that parents said after. These are some of the next steps that they said they would take. I think the neat thing about this is you will see being more intentional, allowing appropriate risk. So helping their student build those self-awareness and self-advocacy skills, right? Increase the amount of practice we do with adulting. That sounds really great to Carla and I, because we know that our students with ASD, they need that extra practice and it needs to be intentional. So it's really neat to see that parents are picking up on our ideas. Once we do our technical assistance, we also do a little survey, and we ask, these questions are very similar to what we ask the parents, but obviously it's a little different vein because this is teacher-led. But this is the responses we got. Most folks thought that we were experts and that we really helped them better understand their student. And I love this last part here that, we help them identify transition-related resources. That is a huge thing for teachers to just have those resources at their hands so that they can decide which one works for which kiddo. And we think that is going to help those students have better outcomes post-secondary. Our next steps after TA sessions, these are what some of the staff have said. I love that teachers are starting to see the importance of writing better transition plans and preparing families. I think when we entered into this project, we did see that a lot of times we would see teachers that just kind of wrote goals. I mean, they were good goals, they were compliant goals, but they were pretty basic, and they didn't really see the importance of the transition plan, because in their mind, it was really important that this kiddo learned how to write a 5-paragraph essay if he was going to college, which is important. But I think what we've been able to do through our trainings and technical assistance is start to shift that a little bit for teachers, for them to realize that now we have to start thinking about what's next. And that everything has to kind of circle around, what is that plan? Is he going to college? If he's going to college, but he's late to class every day, well, we can work on that in the transition plan, and we can take data on that, and we can set goals for that. And that's just as valid as that writing the 5-paragraph essay. So program infrastructure, this is a big thing for us, is to look about like, what is the program now and how can we change it to improve outcomes? So we're studying that as much as possible. The biggest way that we study that is through this quality indicators of exemplary transition program needs assessment. This has been around a long time. We have partnered with the University of Kansas so that we can give that to our teachers electronically, which is really nice. We've given it for 2 years running. And it's great because teachers are doing a self-assessment of transition planning at their school. There's several questions in about 7 different domains, from transition assessment, transition planning, interagency collaboration, parent engagement, student engagement. And they answer those questions and they rate their programming 1 to 4. 4 being, we're doing amazing. 1, we're not doing very well at all. It's great for a couple of reasons. First of all, we do take that back to the teachers. Each year we've taken that back to the teachers and we've presented it to them, and we've said, okay, this is what you've said is a need. This is what you've said is a strength. And then we have teachers work in small groups to really identify, how can we fix this? Like, what do you guys think we need to do? Is it that you need resources from your administration? And then we take that to the task force, right? And we say, okay, your teachers are saying, like, for example, at Tapestry Public Charter School, after our first year, the teachers were really saying, we need a packet of information to hand out at IEP meetings for parents. So we took that back to the task force, and the task force developed a packet that is now available on their Google Drive, and it has GVRA, Georgia Vocational Rehabilitation Agency, the pamphlet that goes with that. And it has the permission slip for pre-employment training services. We have we made a flyer for parents, like, this is what transition's about, and these are some resources. We also made a transition timeline that a couple of the teachers put together, and that goes to parents. We built out a local resources for different areas for parents. So a resource sheet. If your kid wants to volunteer, here are some ways he can volunteer. If you need financial resources, here are some financial resources. And we put that all together. And so teachers are empowered now and parents are educated, right? And that just goes to parents at each meeting, or teachers can pick and choose what parents might need at that meeting. We also, I think, put in a turning 18 handout, right? Because that's a big deal. So that was one way we took that data from the QI2 and we used it to change programming at the school. We will continue to give the QI2 each year in the early spring. So that we can work through that data in the late spring, and then share it with not only the task force, which includes our administration, but then with our teachers. And it's been, we've only done it for 2 years now, but it really has been eye-opening. We've gotten some fantastic data. It's interesting to see the areas of growth. It's interesting that some areas actually dropped back. And when we were talking to teachers about that, they're like, well, I never really thought about it before, but now that I'm doing all this training and technical assistance, I'm realizing that this interagency collaboration thing is important, right? And so we saw those numbers drop, which is just is what we were told would happen, but it's just kind of fascinating to see that. So moving forward, the best part of this job and this project is we keep getting better. I think we do. We keep thinking about ways to help teachers more, parents more, students more. So this year we'll be completing 14 to 16 transition assessments, and we'll be serving families and students in the 8th through 11th grades. And then, you know, the following year, that eldest cohort will be in the 12th grade, and we'll follow them until the year after high school. We are kind of shifting our focus a little bit at our pilot site that we've been to the longest. We were realizing that, you know, we could kind of do a mini version of our transition assessments and broaden our reach to families. And so we're going to be implementing these, what we're calling transition planning meetings. So it won't be the big long thing that I mentioned about the transition assessment. It'll be kind of a smaller version of that. We'll still ask families for the background information, any assessments, and we will then sit down with the student, with the parent, with the case manager, and just talk about like, okay, what are your goals? How can you reach them? It'll be a little more informal. We'll follow up with resources afterwards, but we're going to do that. And we're thinking we're going to meet with students in the 8th grade and then meet with those same kiddos in the 10th grade. But because it's a little shorter process, it's not going to require us, we're going to be able to broaden our reach. We're going to be able to work with more kids. And then we're also creating, in coordination with our board, we're creating transition toolkits. I think I said a transition toolkit, but as we're starting to study it, we're like, ooh, this is going to have to be several toolkits. And they're probably going to be available online. And we're thinking of doing, right now we're working on our executive functioning one. We're hoping to have one in all of our 4 areas, the self-awareness, the daily living, and social skills. And we want those to be a resource for teachers, for parents, and for self-advocates. So we're working on that in the background this year, hoping to have that by the end of the year, the end of the project year. One of the neat things that Carla has done since she came on in January, she has developed and launched a series of teacher trainings for new or not traditionally trained teachers. This is a need we are seeing across the districts that we work with, but specifically in our pilot projects, is that we have a lot of teachers that did not get regular special education training and come to it from, you know, the regular path. And so even those teachers that were traditionally trained, when they're new, they have very little knowledge about transition. And so she has set that up and done a beautiful job. And we've broken that down into 4 modules that have specific topics. And then in between that, she's doing technical assistance with those teachers. So we'll hopefully have more data on that next year about the effectiveness of that. But at first blush, it seems to be very well received because this is like a smaller, more intimate group. So it becomes really almost a workshop kind of activity, and teachers are really bouncing ideas off each other, which is fantastic. And then we're actively seeking an additional pilot site. So we're going to be expanding yet again, probably not in the fall, but probably in the fall after that. But that is really exciting. So we're starting some of those conversations. And so as we get a little closer to wrapping up, Just wanted to share a little bit about the Emory Autism Center. I don't know if there's any folks here in Georgia, but even if not, we are a great resource. We do these comprehensive transition assessments. We can do those for other folks. We are also, through the Georgia Vocational Rehabilitation Agency, we do something similar called a comprehensive vocational profile, which is, looks at the student much in the same way, in that kind of global way, with interviewing the student, interviewing the teacher, and we might even interview an employer if the person is working, looking at all that data, putting it together. And so when we make those vocational recommendations, we're not only looking at, oh, gee, you have the interest and the aptitude to be, I don't know, a teacher, but these are the kind of things that people are going to need to do to support you in your work life. And these are things that you're going to need to ask for. But then we also broaden it and we look at community supports, adult living skills, that sort of thing. So it's a very comprehensive, hence the name, assessment. We've had great response from the people that have received those. We do something called goal planning meetings, and we can do those virtually. Those are very similar to that transition meeting that I was speaking about earlier, where we meet one-on-one with the family and the student, and we say, okay, what are your goals? A lot of parents come to us, in the beginning of that senior year saying, okay, he's graduating in May and we don't really know what we're doing after, maybe he wants to go to college, that kind of stuff. And so we meet with those folks and we set a plan and we set goals and we offer resources and referrals and follow up with those families. We do have counseling staff at the Emory Autism Center, and we do individual counseling. We have the My Life program, which is a kind of social and independent living program for adults on the spectrum. And there's so many different groups that they run, from a young professionals group to a like a game night kind of thing. So lots of different things. We do have doctors on staff and advanced practice nurses that do medication management. One thing that I wanted to draw your attention to, and if you go onto the Emory Autism site and you go to the education and transition team, you'll see it. It's a big blue block that you can click on, are our transition resources. This came up with, we were working with our board and we're thinking, how can we support families, individuals better? And so we started with this thing. It started out as guiding questions for parents, and then it kind of just morphed to this transition resources, but we kept the questions. So you can click on a question and it will take you to several resources related to that area. And it covers all aspects of transition. Not all of them are specific to Georgia. So if you're not in our state, it's still probably worth a look, and it's, perfectly free and easy, and you can access it anytime. So lastly, this is Carla and I's information. If you want to reach out to us, I can also pop our addresses, our email addresses into the chat. We love helping people. It's both of us will spend, we just love talking to people and emailing and presenting. And so, reach out if you think that we can be of an assistance to you. We would be happy to do so. And that's pretty much the end of our presentation. We had one question that came to us via email, and I might let my lovely colleague Carla answer it because it's specific to college or post-secondary, programming, and how can a student access supports. And this is totally in her wheelhouse because she used to work at Kennesaw. So I'll let her answer that question, and I'll pop our email addresses into the chat and monitor the chat while she chats.
Thank you, Dayna. And thank you, Dr. Barnes, for putting this together. This is a great question and so important. And I hope that I address it with fidelity. And if not, I'm so open to guidance and, a different direction. Students really, really need to access the supports that are available for them on campus. All schools, private colleges, public universities, technical schools, all those schools have an office on campus somewhere that's called something like accessibility services or special student supports. And this is the place where they can go and ask for those accommodations. They are very different from the accommodations that they may be eligible for and receive under IDEA. It is a requirement under IDEA that students receive all the supports they need to succeed. In colleges, is not necessarily what has to happen, but colleges are really motivated for their students to succeed. They want them to succeed. So colleges are required under ADA to give access. Usually what that looks like is extra time on assignments, extra time on tests, being able to take an exam in a quiet place, maybe a smaller room, a room with better lighting. And it is really up to the student themselves to ask for that. When I was working with Kennesaw State University, quite often parents would show up at the college and ask professors, hey, professor, my son, my daughter needs to be sitting in the front of the room. They can't talk to them. There are FERPA rules in place that they cannot talk to them unless there's express written permission from the student, which quite often the student's glad to give, but it's pretty protected. I would really advocate, as you're writing transition plans, to train students, talk with your families to have the students advocate for themselves. Starting in high school, one of my favorite transition goals is that the student will make an appointment to meet with their teacher and say, let's look at the accommodations I'm getting now in class. Let's go over them. And I want to give you some feedback on how they're working for me or not. Quite often, we just leave those accommodations in the IEP and go forward. The student may or may not still want them. It is also really important for students to be able to talk about what does work for them and what they need. Quite often what we see is students who finish high school, they get accepted to college, they're smart kiddos, they go on, they get accepted to college, they get there and they think they're cured. They think they're all better because they've left that high school where those mean teachers said they had some kind of disability, some kind of spectrum-y something, and college will be all better. And about Christmas time, the first semester, they go, oh, I'm not all better. This is really hard. And they don't tell their parents that. And then the parents get their grades at the end of the semester and go, oh my gosh, we have a problem here. So that's when they come back to that office on campus and advocate for themselves. What usually happens on what happens on Emory campus, I've worked closest with them lately, is that the student will submit documentation about their disability. It can be a diagnosis, it can be an IEP, it can be a number of things. It's different depending on what university it is. So you should check with that office. And I'm seeing great resources that are coming in. Laura has created a resource she's sharing with us. Thank you, Laura. That's fantastic. That the students can go with their documentation, and there is a form letter that goes out after the documentation is all reviewed. Sometimes students have to pick up those letters, deliver them to their professors. Sometimes they're automatically sent to the professors that they have. And then it really is up to the student to follow up and make sure that those things are happening, that they get that extra time, that they get to take their midterms in a quiet space. They do find almost 100% of the time, they do find that it helps tremendously. It really helps a lot for them. Those are the most common accommodations that I see, other than students who may have physical disabilities, vision impairments, hearing impairments. Sometimes there's specialized equipment that's available for those students.
So just to piggyback on what you were saying, I think sometimes parents feel like, well, I should be involved. I need to be involved. And you can, fill out a FERPA form with the school that will allow the school to talk to you about your students' grades or success, that kind of stuff. I would be cautious about that, because it is, that there's that dignity of risk. There's the communication piece. It's really time for us to coach from the sidelines, rather than be right there, which I get. It's hard. I have 2 young adults myself, so I understand, and both of them have different issues. But it is really important to, if you need to get that form. Like, just for example, my son is taking a medical leave of absence because he was recently diagnosed with diabetes, and I needed to help navigate that whole thing, like getting him this medical leave of absence, but nobody would talk to me. So I had to get the form, fill out the form, send in the form. And that's fine. It all worked out fine, but it is one step. But just to kind of throw that out there for anyone who might be concerned. Do we have, okay. Do we have any other questions? Because I think we're going to wrap it up at 12:55 in just 2 minutes.
I just wanted to thank Laura for the fantastic resource that she dropped in the chat. I'm stealing it.
Yep, I've already downloaded it. We're like, I told you, we were teachers. We take everything, we use it. I did pop in the chat too. If you are looking for a school that is specifically has an autism support program, from the College Autism Network, they have a great resource that they've basically built out. Like, these are all the schools. It's broken down by regions of the country, and it's really nicely done. And so I did pop that in the chat if anyone's looking for that specifically. All right, I am going to turn it over to Denise. If you do have a question that pops up later, please just reach out to us.
Thank you very much for this presentation on the individualized transition program that you guys are facilitating at Emory University. It is greatly appreciated. And now we will move on with the last few slides. Thank all of you who attended today. I truly appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to join us for this lunch and learn that we are having today. I also want to let you know a few things as to what's coming up in the next few months. On October 18th, we will have our regularly scheduled evening webinar from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. and it will be hosted by, or our speaker will be Christine Hugh from our Learning Academy program, which is for adults on the autism spectrum. And the title is No Need to Fall Off the Service Cliff. And she'll be providing strategies and resources for successful post-secondary employment and educational outcomes. And we're excited about that. So if you have not registered, feel free to register for that. We also have on our website, and you can click this QR code or email me for the link. I'll also send it out to all those who are present today. Our full webinar schedule for the full year is up. We may add a couple near the end of the year then end of the academic year, so probably in March, in May. And those will be focused primarily on adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities sharing what life has been like and what transition supports they wish they would have had. And so those will be planned and will be added to this calendar at a later date. If you're interested in presenting for FCIC employment for our webinars or our conferences or anything, you can send that information to me. You can click the link that'll be in the PowerPoint, or you can just send me that you're interested, and I'll send you the link to fill out the form so that we can have your information and your proposal on hand when we seek speakers. Also, I put the survey link into the chat already. Surveys are required for you to get a certificate of attendance. You must use the same email for your survey as you do for your registration. The certificate should be emailed within 24 hours of you completing it. If it's not, let me know. I get a copy of all the certificates, so I can always send it to you, but you do have to complete it and submit it before the certificate is released to you. And here is the link again, and also a QR code for our survey. Are there any questions or comments? You can raise your hand, or you can, we have a thank you. Somebody's chat or video isn't working again. Sometimes with Zoom, you have to sign in, and if you already have a Zoom account, they want that before they'll let you do anything in it, so I apologize for that. But we will be recording this, and it will be added to our website in the next few months, and we have some thank yous in the chat. And again, I'd like to just thank you guys for being very informative and providing this lunch and learn for our individuals, and we look forward to working together with you again in the future. Continue collaborations to learn about your program so that we can implement similar things here in the state of Florida and share information for all those that are here. So with that, I'd just like to say thank you again. Enjoy the last 3 minutes or 2 minutes of your lunch hours.
Thanks, everyone.
Much.
Thank you.
Please visit our website for more information about our programs, projects, and how you can get involved.